morning, everybody. Welcome back. It's the Lake Effect Gardener. My name's Jim, and today we are going to give you your very first viewing of my vegetable garden. So this is going to be my very first garden tour. I'm very excited to show you what I have growing. Some things are growing really well. Some things could stand to grow a little bit better, but I think, that's kind of what gardening is all about. It's the trials and tribulations, and it keeps us coming back for more, doesn't it? So I'm just sitting here in the shed. I've got my lovely cup of tea here, and I took some of this footage this morning early, around 6:30 a.m. because we are due to have some rain, which is going to be so welcomed. I can't even tell you. It's been really hot and very dry for about a week, and you can probably agree with me that using a hose to water your plants is just not the same as Mother Nature's sprinkler system. It isn't. So I'm really pleased. It's going to take care of a lot of things for me that I can't necessarily get to. So we're going to start with the closest beds that are to the garage. So I'm going to call that the top of the plot. And then we're going to work our way all the way to the end of the plot. And then hopefully you guys will have a pretty decent idea on what my vegetable garden looks like. So I do want to tell you a little bit about it before we get into it. When I first started doing gardening, when I moved into this house 10 years ago, I started off with basically a 5x5 raised bed, very small. I grew a couple of tomatoes and a couple of I think it was basil that I was growing, and that was it. And from there, every single year I kept expanding and expanding and expanding. And then it's kind of blossomed into this. And to say that I am done expanding my garden I don't know. Every year I tell myself, okay, this is it. This is enough. You're good. You've got plenty of space to grow. And then, during the long, boring Western New York winters, I start hatching these plans. I'm watching more YouTube videos. I'm reading more books. I'm reading more blogs. And I get all these ideas. And then I end up expanding it. I didn't expand it too much this year. I just added one bed this year, so it didn't go through a huge change. But just the same, you just can't help. You catch the bug, and you just want to grow, and you want to grow more. So I hope you guys enjoy this tour. I may be a little whispery, only because it was early in the morning, and I like to kind of keep a low profile. I don't like to be one of those loud, obnoxious neighbors. I'm sure a lot of my neighbors were still already in bed. So I hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you back in the shed once the tour's done. Alrighty, here we go. So we'll start at the top of the garden, and we'll work our way down. First, I want to point out this obelisk that I built using old branches. It's a nice little focal point. I like it. You see it when you enter the garden. It's very welcoming. And it's just old branches that are being tied together by jute twine. Nothing special. I created a small raised bed underneath it, and I have Grandpa Ott morning glories growing up it. So mid to end of the season, it's just completely covered in blooms and dark purple blooms, and they are just beautiful. So anyways, I'm gonna move around there. There's my shadow. All right. So you guys remember this from my herbs video. This is the chamomile plant and the sunflowers that have been a delight to whatever critter, what's left of them anyways. So right next door, we've got my first squash bed. And this is a mixture between summer and winter squash. We have over here on the right, we have spaghetti squash. There's only 2 plants. I had planted 3, I lost 1, no biggie. But these are doing really, really well. They're starting to trail. So the idea is that the plants that are planted along this row here are all trailing squash. They'll fill in this gap. And I don't have anything else to fill this gap with. So I'm just leaving it open, and that's fine. I've got several butternut squash plants here, so you can see that this is going to be completely filled. I could grow more sunflowers, or I could plant sweet corn, something that's going to grow tall, but I'm just going to leave it open. I want these plants to have as much sunlight as they can possibly get. And they are greedy guts, so I do have them top dressed with cow manure, well-rotted cow manure. But the idea is that they're going to fill in this whole gap here. So that's that. And then right in front, I've got a row of acorn squash, which I love, roasted, delicious. And this is a bush variety, so they're just going to create a nice little border here. And then along the edge here, I have 5 plants. It's a mixture between yellow and green patty pan squash, so it's that kind of UFO-shaped plant. That UFO-shaped fruit, and they're very similar in texture and taste to zucchini or courgettes. So this is my first year growing those, and they look very, very happy here. I'm very pleased, so I'm taking mental notes on how these do. Next door to that, I have a row of nasturtium and borage. So that will attract the pollinators, and we want these little squash plants to be pollinated. There's nothing worse than seeing fruit beginning to form only for it to fall off because they weren't properly pollinated. So that's why I have those. They're companions that way. All right, so that's this bed, summer and winter squash. I'm going to slowly pan, and we're going to take a look at the bed that is directly behind it. There's my greenhouse. And this is another mixed bed. I've got some winter squash in here, and I also have beans. So this row here in the front are Table King winter squash. This also has a kind of a bush variety, so they're not going anywhere. They're creating a nice border as before. Right in front of it, I've got 4 rows of Blue Lake bush beans. And I just love this bean. I grow it every single year. They are extremely prolific. I get at least 2 or 3 crops off of these plants, and they're flushes, so I get a huge crop all at once, which I love. Great for fresh eating, great for canning, and I will be giving a video tutorial on how to use a pressure canner. I purchased a pressure canner a couple of years ago, and it's been wonderful for soups and stocks and vegetables that don't have much acidity to them. So these beans, they can really, really well. So I'll be giving a tutorial on that for sure in the upcoming months. Along the side here, growing up this trellis, are the Burgess Buttercup winter squash. And they're a trailing variety, but you can see I'm actually training them up this trellis. And very unusual trellis, I might add. This happens to be my old bed box springs. I got myself a new mattress earlier in the year, and I had these stored in the garage, and I was looking at them one day and I'm like, well, I wonder what's underneath all that material. So I tore it all off, and instant growing trellis. Look at that. Can you believe that? This is one of my definite upcycle wins. So yeah, I think it's fabulous. I love that this didn't go to a landfill, you know? So they're already starting to make their way up, and we'll see how that goes. The fruit that I usually get off of it is not terribly big, so I'm not gonna have to worry about supporting the fruit as it forms, but it's gonna make a beautiful little kind of a screen of green. I love it. Now behind that, on this growing trellis, which acts as not only as a trellis but also as a privacy screen, because I have a very nosy neighbor next door, I do have peas growing, but they did not do well this year. I think the seed is old anyways, so the germination rate was very, very poor. The variety is called Alderman, and they're just not looking very happy this year. Never mind, it's not a big deal. I never get that many peas out of them anyhow. I do, however, when whatever peas that happen to be produced come out, I will be replanting Malabar spinach, which is a tropical vine. It's a vine, and it's not like your typical spinach plant where it stays small and compact or grows like a bush. It does have a vining quality to it. It will climb right up, and you can just harvest the leaves like you would for spinach. And they taste just like spinach, and they love the heat and the hot, which this particular area of the garden is known for. So I don't have to worry about it bolting, which is wonderful. You can cook with them too, and it's just an all-around really cool plant. So that's this bed. I'm going to move next door to the second summer squash bed now. Okay, welcome to my summer squash bed. Oh dear. Very, very sad looking. I have to say, usually my summer squash at this point usually looks a lot better than this. I'm not pleased how things are going in this bed. I had mentioned in my herbs/herbs video that I think I may have gotten some not so great compost, and I think this is really I think this is what's really causing these plants to look so tiddly and small. Never mind. At this rate, I'm just going to tell you that these first 2 rows are yellow crookneck, and the second 2 rows are black beauty zucchini or courgettes. They're usually much bigger than this at this time of year. They really are. I did do a top dressing about a week ago of well-rotted cow manure. Hopefully, if it's a problem with the nutrients, that's something that's going to be corrected. I don't think it's my watering. I think these get plenty of water. So I don't think they're getting too much water. I don't know. I, on the safe side, did... Oh, look at that little field mouse. Can you believe that? See it? Oh, and it's eating my pea plant. Isn't that nice? And there he goes. Sorry, I actually accidentally pressed the... I stopped the recording on accident after that. After the mouse photobombed my video. Anywho, bold as brass, really. I mean, he was super close to me. He didn't care. Where is that precious ginger kitty when I need him? Anyways, in each corner of this bed, I do have some delicata winter squash growing, and they seem to be doing well, so I don't know. That's why this bed is so confusing. It's like, okay, so there's a delicata over here, okay? And then there's a delicata over here, and they look really happy. Oh boy, never mind. I have more peas growing up here, or attempting to grow up here. Like I said, they're looking pretty sad. But I'm gonna give it a little time, and then when they're done, I will put some more Malabar spinach in here to grow up. But anyways, this is my summer squash bed. Fingers crossed. Please send prayers for this poor, poor bed. It's looking very, very sad. Okay, friends. Now, this bed, which is directly across the street from my poor, pathetic squash bed, this is usually a cucumber bed, but I decided to switch it up. Just because. When you have a no-dig bed, at least what I gathered from listening to Charles Dowding, you don't really have to worry about rotating your crops because you keep adding fresh soil and compost on top. You don't have so much of a problem when it comes to soil-borne illness, and disease and things like that. So if I switch a bed up, it's because I just want to change. That's all. So we've got tomatoes, and we also have peppers in this bed. And the first 2 rows of peppers that I have over here are Thai chili peppers. And these are fabulous. I love these peppers. These are great for curries. And I am a huge fan of Indian food. I can't get enough of it. I really can't. So I grew these last year. I got a bountiful crop off of them. And they're great fresh, and they dry really well. And I used my dry chilies all during the winter months. So these are great plants. I really hope that I get, the epic harvest that I got last year. Moving right along, we've got 3 rows of tomatoes. Now you can see that some tomatoes have poles and some have trellising, tomato trellising, or cages. The pole varieties, obviously, since they're nice and tall, are your indeterminate varieties. So they're going to keep growing up and up and up and up, and they'll be tied in. And then the trellised tomatoes are bush varieties or determinate varieties. So they grow to a finite height, and then they produce kind of in a bushy variety typey way thingy. Anyways, so the indeterminate varieties that I have growing here are called Arkansas Traveler, and they are an all-around wonderful tomato. You can do anything with them. So they're great for cooking, they're great for freezing, they're wonderful for making sauces, they're great canning tomatoes, and I mean, moreover, the best part is they're fabulous for fresh eating. So I have 2 rows of those. In between, I've got this row of determinate tomatoes, which are called Mountain Pride. Never grown them before. So this is my first year. I'll be interested to see how well they crop. And then on the other end, I've got some more peppers. Now these are sweet peppers, and the variety is called Better Bell. And I grow these every year as well. And they're not terribly huge peppers. They're perfect for, you know, just me. And they start out green, and then they will mature into deep, deep, deep red flesh that's just gorgeous and sweet and wonderful. So I have several of those plants as well. So this is my tomatoey, peppery bed. Looking much better than its close neighbor, the summer squash bed. Hopefully that will change. Okay, so before we get into this bed, I'm actually gonna swing you to the left a little bit. And we're gonna take a look at these 3 grow bags. So I've never used grow bags before. This is my first season doing so. And in these grow bags, I have potatoes. Now, I've done potatoes in pots before, but I've never done them in grow bags. And this year, I was really hoping that I could get several varieties of potatoes to grow in the garden. I ordered, I think maybe 4 or 5 different varieties, but the only one that managed to make it to my doorstep were these, which is better than nothing. The other ones kind of either got lost in the mail, or because of the whole COVID situation just didn't end up being available. I get these emails saying, sorry, after I've already paid for them, mind you. So anyways, I got my refund. So this variety is called Satina. It's a German variety, and it's an early to mid-season potato. I ended up only getting 3 seed potatoes. That's it. So I gave them a good chit on my kitchen table where there's plenty of sunlight. And after they chitted, I ended up dividing them into 12 smaller pieces. So what I ended up doing was, out of the, you know, the 20 batch of bags that I got, I only used 3. And in each one of these growing bags, I put 3 seed potatoes. And they're doing really, really well. I'm pleased. They're starting to come up and they're starting to green up. These do need to be topped off, however. And I do have some of my homemade compost that I will top these off with. So there are 9 seed potatoes in total. The other 3, since I divided them into 12, the other 3 I delivered to my dad. I gave him a grow bag with some compost and 3 seed potatoes for him to grow on. We'll see how they go. But I've heard wonderful things about these these grow bags, so I'm really interested in seeing what's going to come. As with the other, 16 grow bags that I have, I don't know, maybe I'll put them in the tunnel, or maybe I'll start some other later crops. Maybe I'll do some spinach in them as the weather starts to cool down here. Who knows? But I'm really excited. I can't wait to do a harvest video of these. I hope I get more than just the seed potatoes and a bunch of green shoots. So there we go. Now we're gonna head back to the big 20-foot, it's 12-foot by 12-foot garden bed. All right, moving right along. This is a 12 by 12 raised bed, and this one is kind of in front of the shed. A 12 by 12 bed in front of the shed. this changes every year. I think last year I grew winter squash in here. I decided to change it up again for no particular reason. But the one plant that I always have growing in this bed are the pole beans. And this is the same variety pole bean as the bush bean that I have growing on the other side of the garden. So these are also called Blue Lake. They have the same exact attributes as the bush variety, but they are a later season bean. So when my bush beans are done, my first crop, I should say, of bush beans are done, these will start to come into production as I wait for the second planting of the bush beans to happen. So I will do a second planting of bush beans just to kind of extend my cropping of that. So these do really, really well. They've always done really well here. And again, they create a really nice privacy screen. I'm pleased with that. Right in front, we have eggplant or aubergine. And this variety, like the zucchini, is also called Black Beauty. And I've got cages around them because they do grow big, and the fruit that comes off of them are really big, and they tend to be on the heavy side. So this is just kind of a support system for them. And I got all of these cages from my father. He didn't want them anymore, and he was going to throw them away. So I, of course, I grabbed them, as I do. So I usually get a really decent crop out of these, and they're just beautiful, large, very shiny, very fleshy, delicious, wonderful for everything. I like to grill zucchini. I'm sorry, eggplant. I like to grill eggplant, so delicious. Moving right along, I have a row of Bright Lights Swiss chard. And Swiss chard is one of those, go-to plants for me during the summer when it comes to salads, if they're small enough, or for cooking. And I just adore it. I just adore it. Next to that, I have a row of beetroot. And this variety is called Detroit Dark Red. And they have that really, really beautiful, dark, deep dark, kind of maroon burgundy flesh, and an incredible taste. Love them. Next to that, I have a row of collards, collard greens. And this is my first year growing collards. Although I've eaten collards many times prepared, and they are delicious, I thought I'd just give it a go. And these are starting to come up. I need to thin them out. I do have some extra plantings that I have in the cells just in case I have any gaps that need to be filled. So those will grow pretty big. And then this is a win for me this year. This is 2 rows of onions, and I've tried onions so many times, I can't even tell you. And they never come to anything, ever. So I usually grow from sets, which I did this year. The only difference is I started the sets in pots this year. So I grew them in pots first. Usually I'll put them directly into the soil. I did not do that this year. And they're doing really well. They're bulbing up beautifully. I am so excited. So I have 2 rows of, I'm gonna match my fingers up here, 2 rows of red onions, and that variety is called Red Baron. And then 2 varieties growing right next door. These are, one variety, it's called Yellow Stuttgart. So really excited about that. I cannot wait. I think I'm more excited to pull them up and to, dry them. And yeah, so I'm really excited about the onions. They're looking really, really nice. So we're gonna move on to the next bed now. Okay, just to give you some perspective of where I am right now. So there's the shed, and directly in front of you is that 12 by 12 bed that I just talked about. Now over here to my left, this is my sweet corn bed. This is one of those beds that never moves. This is always the sweet corn bed. They love it here. Love it. So this variety is called Golden Bantam, and this is all grown from saved seed. It's extremely prolific. These grow super tall, and I already know that I'm gonna, knock on wood, have a really good crop because of the old adage, the knee high by July, or as us Americans would say, knee high by the 4th of July. They're already there. So I'm really pleased. Notice that I have them planted in blocks because they are wind pollinated. But this is a fabulous old heirloom variety, and I always get plenty of delicious, sweet, not very starchy ears of corn. And then at the end of the season, when I chop down all of the stalks, I use them as decoration for Halloween. So love, love, love the sweet corn. It's doing really well so far. Right next door to the sweet corn bed, I have my tomato bed. It's pretty big. But as you can see from the poles, that these are all indeterminate varieties, all heirloom varieties. I can keep seed from all of this. So along the perimeter, I have all of my basil plants that I didn't get to show you in my last video. So there's quite a number of them. And basil grows really, really well with tomatoes, both as a protection crop and to help enhance the flavor. So I'm not going to get into the varieties because otherwise this video is going to be 20 years long. But as you see, I've got 2 rows of tomatoes that are closely planted together, a path, and then so on and so forth in the same manner. I've had no problems with this type of growing. I like how close they are together. They grow really tall, and therefore I don't really have any problems with circulation. I've never had blight here, which I'm really pleased about. So this works for me. In between each of these rows, I also have a row of carrots that are planted in between. Okay, so the tomatoes create shade. They also kind of deter the critters from having their way with those carrot plants. So I'm just going to go quickly and show you exactly which varieties I'm growing. Over here on the left, I have San Marzanos. All right, great paste tomato. In between, I have Danvers carrots growing. Okay, and then on the other side, I have my favorite tomato ever, Sweetie. It's called Sweetie. I love that the name in itself is fabulous. And honestly, these tomatoes, they just never make it to the kitchen, ever. I just kind of sit my rump down here on a hot day, and I'll collect as many ripe ones as I can, and I just pop them. They're about the size of currants. They're small, but oh my gosh, the flavor, and they are so sweet. Delicious. Okay, we're moving on to the next row here. On the left, we have Homestead. Okay, in between, another row of Danvers carrots. And then on the right-hand side, we have beefsteak. And I love the beefsteak tomatoes because they are great, they're great slicing tomatoes. And my favorite thing to make during the summer is a tomato sandwich. I don't know if you've ever had one, but I take whole wheat bread and I toast it, and then I put lashes of mayo on it, and then the tomatoes and a little bit of cracked pepper and maybe some sliced red onion. Oh, there is nothing like it. If you haven't tried it before, give it a whirl. Okay, moving on to the next row, we have on the left, the variety is called New Yorker. It's about a plum-sized tomato. It's not terribly big. Very good for salads. In between, I've changed up the Danvers to, this is actually called the Scarlet Nance. And they're very nice looking carrots. They're not terribly long, beautiful orange color. And then to the right of that, the variety of tomatoes I'm growing is called Sunbeam. All right. Continuing on, the next row that I have here on the left, the variety is called Big Boy. I have another row of Scarlet Nance carrots in between. And then on the right, I have Amish paste. All right, and finally the last row, on the left, I have a new variety that I'm growing this year. It's called, and I'm probably going to butcher this name, but it's called Consoluto Genovese. It's an Italian heirloom variety, and I just like the way it looked. It was all kind of ribbed looking, and I'm Italian, so why not? You know, I'll grow it. In between, we have some more of those Scarlet Nance carrots, and then on the very edge, we have a variety that's called Porter. So that is my tomato bed in a nutshell. I'll be interested to see how these crop. I can't wait to kind of get in here and, you know, take the suckers out and start tying them in. I just love tomatoes. They are the quintessential summer vegetable. And here we are. I call this the cucumber bed, but it's, once again, another mixed bed. But you can see my cucumber trellis. I know it seems large, but believe it or not, these cucumbers do make it all the way to the top. And then they actually will grow over the top. So I have two different varieties of cucumbers. The first variety, closest to me, are the Marketmore 76s. And that's my eating cucumber. They're fabulous and very prolific, very straight, and just very, very tasty. And then the other half of the bed over here, I've got National Pickling. That's the variety. And I'm gonna get into pickling this year. I've never done it before. It's one of those things that I would like to do. So just two varieties, but with the amount of plants that I have here and the large amount of trellising, I'm hoping that I'm gonna get a huge crop. Just underneath, I've got a row of muskmelons. And I've got some grass in there that I need to weed out, but a row of muskmelons. I've never grown these before. Melons typically do not do well in Western New York because the growing season's not long enough, but I always give it a try. You just never know. Right in front of that is a new plant for the Lake Effect Garden this year, but not new to, I'm sure, a great deal of my subscribers. Okay, these are fava beans, as we call them in America. Over in the UK, they're called broad beans. Now, the winters here are incredibly they're just so harsh that I cannot plant these in autumn and expect to crop out of them, get a crop out of them come the spring. They just will not survive, I'm telling you. So these were spring sown, and they're doing pretty well. And I'm beginning to see some flower buds form, so I'm really happy. And I apologize, this is not me bragging, but I know to my UK friends, we don't have black fly. So I'm really, really pleased about that. So once they start flowering and the tips continue to grow, I'm really looking forward to actually harvesting the tips and using them in food. So we'll see. I bought 10 seeds. That's all I got in my packet. They all came. They all ended up germinating. So I hopefully will get a lot so that I can actually save some of my seed. But yeah, first time for the broad beans. Really excited about that. Directly in front, there's just a small row of green cabbage, and I just put those in a couple of weeks ago, so they're looking a little small right now, but they look happy, so I'm not going to complain. And just beginning to pop up, I've got this row right here, and this is pak choi. So I've got green pak choi, and I've got purple pak choi. This is another new one for the Lake Effect Garden, so never grew it before. We'll see how it turns out. Directly in front of that, I've got a row of Boston bib lettuce, and they love it here. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna write that down. Oh, I've got the footage to look back upon, but they love it here. Look how big that head is. Cannot wait to harvest that. And then I have a row of Mizuna, which is an Asian cooking green. So never grew that either. It's looking a little scorched right now, and it's definitely been nibbled on. So I'm hoping that it will take off so that I can actually harvest some. If it doesn't, I'm probably going to tear it out and grow some arugula there, or rocket. So we'll see. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the last and the biggest bed in the garden. Okay, so this is my salad and brassica bed. As you can see, I have it completely fenced in because this is basically a buffet for any rabbits who decide to come visit this garden. I'm just gonna take you through this quickly. I'm not gonna get too in-depth about anything, but I just need to climb over this little fence here. So starting at the bottom here, I've got Brussels sprouts. And then I have 3 different varieties of Swiss chard. So these 2 small rows are called Magenta Sunset. Middle 2 rows, Ruby Red. And then the final 2 rows are Ford Hook Giant. Okay, alongside that I have Lacinato Kale, which is being just absolutely loved by the slugs. So I think a beer trap is in order. There we have it. I'm not a huge fan of kale, honestly, but this type of kale I absolutely adore. Great in salads when they're picked young, great in soups and stews, and and to saute up when they get a little bit more mature. Next row, we've got some French sorrel, very lemony. And then over here, we've got fenugreek, which is Indian spinach. So it's great in curries. And then as I pan over here, I'm not gonna go through all the varieties, but this is where all my salad leaves are. And I've got a mix of romaine and whatnot, and I have some volunteers that are popping up. This is a volunteer from last year. I love fruit plants, I really do. Over here, I've got some spinach, which has already bolted. So yeah, there you have it. Not really good luck with the spinach. I may have gotten it in too late, or it was stressed because of all the hot weather and not getting enough water, not sure. But listen, if you guys have a variety that you know of that is slow/no bolting, please put it in the comments box below, because I would love to know a variety of spinach that I can actually grow during midsummer. That'd be swell. Okay, a couple more rows of romaine lettuce. Moving on over here, I've got a variety of cabbage that's called Early Jersey Wakefield, and I've never grown it before. It's supposed to be early cropping, so we'll see how that goes. On the very edge, I have a couple more volunteers of lettuce, fine with me. This is rutabaga, or as my British friends would call it, swede. It sounds so much more posh when you say swede, doesn't it? All right, a couple more rows of beetroot. This is the same Detroit dark red. Over here, this is supposed to be a self-blanching cauliflower, but again, the slugs, they're loving it. So it's high time I cracked a few beers and created nice little swimming pools for them to enjoy, so they stop enjoying my plants. So I'll crack one open for them, and I'll probably have to crack open 3 for myself. We've got red cabbage right next door. I want to get into making sauerkraut, so we'll see how that goes. And another variety of cauliflower. This is snowball. And then finally over here, we've got just standard broccoli. I did try growing purple sprouting broccoli, and I had an amazing, beautiful crop. And they were just about to be harvested when a family of rabbits, I think, came in and they literally nibbled them down to the stump. And how did I know this? Because they left their calling cards all over creation. Was not happy. That's why the fence went up. So there we have it, folks. This is my salad and brassica bed in all of its glory. It could use a good watering right now. I'm banking on Mother Nature to do that for me. Right next door to my brassica/salad bed, I have my pumpkin patch. Now, if you remember earlier, I showed you where the butternut squash is. I left that gap there, etc. The first bed I showed you. Now, that is usually where I would plant my pumpkins. But the pumpkins grow really long, so they would actually grow through the fence and then into my herbaceous border. So I'd have pumpkins and flowers, but I could never really see how many pumpkins I would have growing because they'd be hidden by all the foliage of the flower bed. So I decided to build this bed this year. So it's a small raised bed, nothing substantial. I have 5 pumpkins in here, but I decided that I wanted to give them a good run. So I put this old tarp down. It has some holes in it. I doubled it over just to keep the grass and the weeds down. And I put my pumpkin plants. This variety is the Cinderella pumpkin, or I love saying this, Rouge Vif du Temps. Thank you, Vivi Gregory, for making me addicted to this pumpkin. It's very prolific. Out of these 5 plants, and I grow 5 plants every year, I get at least 10 to 12 pumpkins. And I'm not a huge pumpkin eater. I'm going to admit that. Not a huge pumpkin eater, but they look glorious during the holidays. So during Halloween and Thanksgiving, they make beautiful decorations. And I do give several of them away to my family members. So these are wonderful. You can see, let me see here. Oh, I already have one starting to form. Very exciting. So this is my pumpkin patch. I'll be very interested to see if this reaches all the way to the end. It might, and then some. That's my hope, at least. So there you have it. That was a complete garden tour, my first ever. And I am facing now the back of the house and the back of the garage, and that's where I started the tour. So we're now at the other end of the garden, and I'm just kind of giving you an overview of all 9 of my garden beds, all different sizes, all different shapes. It's really 9 1/4 now that I've added this little pumpkin patch. So it's a pretty decent sized garden. I'm happy. I might even expand on it as the years go. So yeah, there's my shed. There's my tunnel. Hoping for a bountiful crop this year. So there we have it. Several cups of tea later, you guys have your very first garden video tour. I hope you guys liked it. You know, I really enjoyed filming it. I did. It really kind of puts everything under a microscope for me. And it makes me take notice of things that I normally probably would just kind of ignore or walk past. So, not that squash bed though. Oh, hot mess of a bed. But that's okay. You know, as gardeners, we always have a plan B. When things start looking like they're not going to go our way, we take action. And that's what keeps things interesting. We don't just throw our hands up and give up. So, my plan B with that squash bed, I have extra seedlings sown. We'll see if they come to anything. If these squash plants that are currently in the bed happen to work themselves out, fabulous. And then I have extra plants. I'll put them anywhere. I'll plant them in the flowers. I'll plant them in the hedge. Nothing goes to waste. Nothing goes to waste. So yes, the next video. Been thinking about this one. So I've given you guys a couple of tours now. My veg garden, my herb garden. I've given you a DIY video, which I hope you guys liked. I had so much fun doing it. I know I can tend to be a little wordy in these videos, but you guys know that I'm a teacher. I've mentioned that. But as it happens, I'm an elementary school teacher. I teach 4th and 5th graders. So as an elementary school teacher, I have to be very, very detail oriented. So it might come across that I'm prattling on, but really I'm just truly trying to get my point across and making it absolutely clear and saying it 12 different ways so that everyone can understand what I'm saying. My kids don't seem to mind. They're good troopers. Anyways, so the next project I think I might do, I think I might do an upcycle. Something fun, a craft. That would be different. And of course, anything that I do in the way of upcycling or crafts absolutely can be done by anybody, and they can be changed, you know, using your creative process. So if you don't perhaps enjoy the materials that I'm using, switch them. You know what I mean? So that'll be fun. I think that'll be my next video. I think I'm sold on that. So that's it. I'm almost out of tea, which is just as well because I've already had 3 cups. And I'm going to say goodbye for now. And I really appreciate you guys coming in and watching. And you, of course, please, if you have any comments you'd like to make, please do so in the comment section below. If you're new to this channel, please go ahead. I would love for you to subscribe. Press the notification bell so that you can receive notifications. And I will see you next time for a fun, quirky, and interesting project here at the Lake Effect Garden. Bye.